goodness, it's warm here. Have you heard that the whole country is on fire?
Is it actually on fire or is it
Well,
just a
not
heat wave?
fire. Yeah, not yet. But it's just heat, like unbelievable heat waves across the
Yeah.
whole country. Texas, especially, is getting hit really
Yeah, there's
hard.
drought everywhere. It's been unseasonably ridiculously hot in
In
Portland. It's
June,
stupid.
like mid-June.
April. It started in April. It was hot in
Yeah.
April. Why isn't share working? Okay, here we go. Yeah, no. It's above 80 for
It's
all of the weeks coming
really
up.
warm in this office. Like the air conditioning, the vent is right there. Doesn't do anything. Nothing comes out of that. I've tried like opening it up. Doesn't. Nope. It's just freaking hot in here.
Oh no.
I get so sweaty when I'm seeing clients and like going from call to call and holding all that energy and like getting excited about stuff. And then I'll leave and someone will give me a hug and they'll be like, "Oh my God, were you showering? What happened to you?"
Yeah. I have definitely started. Okay, so in the world of people who are like know how denim works, like denim's a big deal, and you apparently don't wash it, just like drown it in a vinegar thing, and then it's supposed
Put
to
it
like
in the freezer, I heard once.
this freezer and vinegar. So I've turned into a vinegar like jean
Really?
soaker person. Yeah, but
Don't your
when things
pants
are like
smell horrible?
they don't when I do it right,
Oh,
they do evaporate.
God,
And
I
it
hate
smells
the
normal
smell of
and
vinegar
fine.
so much. I could never do that.
Yeah. There are sometimes I put too much vinegar in. They have smelled vinegary, but like the whole sweaty junk
Uh,
smell
uh-huh.
is not my favorite, but it's also been a year of isolation. So
Uh-huh.
I've come to enjoy all of my smells in a weird way. And I'm like, well, I'm stanky. I know, but it's my stanky. And it's weird and fine. And then I'm like, oh, I have to go out in public today. I should probably soak or wash my pants and get rid of this smell.
This is a nice segue into the one thing that I watched you haven't watched.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't watch really anything else because I watched this literally, I think, 3 or 4 times in total, if you put it all together in the last week. So I'm just going to sing its praises a little bit, and then we're going to have a special episode to talk about this. I watched my all-time, if he wasn't before, my all-time favorite comedian, a guy named Bo Burnham, released a new special on Netflix called Inside. He produced the entire thing himself, wrote, performed, edited, filmed, composed. I think it might be one of my favorite things I've ever seen. Just full stop. Like anything, including the birth of my children. um,
Brave statement. I'm for you. I'm with it.
It just speaks to me personally. I know a few other people who have also been absolutely floored by its my wife has a book on her shelf. I've never read it. I don't know what it's about, but the title of the book is A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius. And that is, I believe the book is being hyperbolous.
Yeah, I love it.
But that is actually the words that went through my mind when I watched this. And I'm sure for many people, I'm overselling it. But for some people, it can't be oversold. It's so good. It's so personal. It's so clever and real and raw. And it speaks to, it's such a time capsule of 2020. Right. And it's something that, like, you know, that idea that the more personal you make something, the more universally it resonates.
Yeah.
This is very clearly him sharing his own experience. But everyone that I've talked to who has found it to be profound and even healing has said it's because you're like, even though I didn't go through what he went through, that's how I feel. This is how I feel. And it channels something. It's fucking channeled. It's channeled work.
Yeah.
And
if you are
it's
on
so
the edge of your
inspiring to me.
seat waiting for Nicholas to say the title of it, it's
I
Bo
did.
Burnham's. I don't know if you said Inside.
I totally did. I said
I
it's
don't
called
know.
Inside on Netflix. Maybe I didn't.
I think you just said his special on Netflix.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
It's called
I could be
Inside.
wrong. Yeah. And it's possible I missed it, but it's also very likely that I know that you're trained in the art of saying a bunch of compelling things as a trainer and a hypnotherapist.
Before I name drop.
Before you say the thing, because everybody's like, I want to know the what. I want to know the what. We're talking about the why right now. What's the what? Bo Burnham's inside.
I thought I said it. I wasn't trying to leave people dangling for that long.
No.
But the last special that he released was not my favorite. It was pretty good, but it didn't blow me away. The previous one, which was called What? That one was my previous favorite special, comedy special. And they're different. Like, he's not a stand-up comedian in the traditional sense. It's much more like a one-man show that resembles stand-up comedy, but it's not exactly like that. Everything is very precise. But he plays with the form a lot because in this one, it's all done during the pandemic. So the creative steps that he has to take. I can't wait to talk about it with you. So as soon as you can get around to it.
So I did know that this was something we talked about it yesterday week. My brain's still working. Yesterday week, you mentioned it, and I had it on my list as something to watch because it was important. And the other thing is, I am still healing and working on neurotransmitters, and I just anticipated that it might be a very emotional experience.
Yeah. Boxes, plural of tissues.
Right.
I sobbed.
Know that I have the bandwidth for that just now. So I will wait until I can like revel in it and drop down and make it cozy and have my favorite something food. And I don't know, my cat's being nice to me that day. Feeling very sorted and fortified and able to have an expansive experience. I think it's coming. I think it's coming for me. I actually hugged 2 friends this week and went for walks, and those were good. Had pelvic floor work. Everyone should do it this weekend, and that's been unraveling some stuff.
Have you gotten poked yet?
I have not. I'm talking to my naturopath next week about my readiness for that sort of thing, because I have no idea what my experience will be, and I just want to make sure that I'm not stressing out my immune system. I think my adrenals and such are doing a lot better than they were
good
even just a month ago. So that's groovy.
Well, you might be ready for Bo Burnham's special then, because it's an emotional roller coaster. I find it to be fundamentally hopeful and positive, but it's addressing some issues and even just feelings. There's one song in particular I can't wait to talk to you about. It is about a feeling that is so hard to talk about. And it's one that I think almost anybody who listens to that song is going to resonate and know exactly what feeling he's talking about. But it's like the talent and skill that it takes to be able to take an uncomfortable feeling like that and write a song that makes it beautiful and makes it like a precious thing to be able to talk about and look at this thing. It's very psychedelic for me. That's a lot of my experience in the past with like mushrooms and stuff. It's a lot about like the ending of the universe and like the ending of everything and just getting like facing that. And then somebody writing silly songs about it is just oh my God. All right, I'll stop talking about it. I don't have
worries.
I watched the first episode of Loki, but honestly, I have nothing to say about it other than it looks cool. We'll see if something happens in the second episode. I didn't mind the way they set it up, and literally there's a couple of cool moments in it, but we should talk about the whole series when a few more episodes have dropped. Yeah, because it didn't have a lot to talk about.
I think I like doing my best to avoid seeing spoilers and then batching episodes together on things when I can, because I just really like that flow of like diving into a world for some time.
Yeah. Well, I haven't even watched trailers for anything Marvel related in a long time because I don't want anything to be pre-fed. I want the experience of going through it. WandaVision was so much better not knowing anything.
Totally.
And I I don't mind the week to week thing though. There's something about like watching it and then having to sit and digest, and I'm a little hungrier. I like batching too, and binging is fun, but some shows I do enjoy the like week to week. I actually often end up doing them both ways because I'll watch them initially with Faye week to week, and then when Liz wants to watch it, we'll end up batching it for some of them.
That's smart. I think the thing for me that's more comforting about like watching a whole movie, because then you've got the 2 hours ish experience and then you're done with it, or sticking with a show for a little while, is that already in my own life I have my moods change quite a bit, and if I'm going to inhabit a world, I kind of want to linger and stay there and have a complete experience rather than jumping back and forth. Because it's like, I mean, the things I have to watch, that I've been watching a week at a time, are things like Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow right now because they're coming out, and it feels weird. It feels really jarring. It feels like the kinds of things I'm attempting to medicate and heal in my brain, where I'm just like, oh, I'm this person. And
like going to visit someplace for like a weekend. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to Hawaii, but you're only staying there for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you have to fly back, and you don't really get the experience of or
New York. So I went to New York. I was in a relationship at the time, and I went with a person. Okay, her friends are the kinds of travelers who just like to fit everything in and see everything. So I'm in New York, and New York is crazy and busy and lots to do anyway. And we'd had this day where we like walked 12 miles through a bunch of different areas and found the fucking duck and cannolis, and like we hit 8 different things, and we're finally getting to ice cream. Days and days that I wanted to have fun ice cream, and we get to the ice cream place, and I finally pick out of all the 70,000 flavors of ice cream, the ice cream I wanted in my body, and then I have it, and then everybody's like, okay, let's walk to the comedy place. And I didn't want to like shovel ice cream in my face in the dark of Brooklyn, walking to the comedy place. I wanted to sit and look at New Yorkie things.
Right.
Just deeply enveloping my goddamn. No, I'm walking in the dark, shoveling. I can't see it. I can't smell it.
Yeah, you might as well be anywhere else.
I felt like throwing it at a brownstone. I was like, fucking yeah. That is not my way that I like to travel. It's like, So I get the analogy for shows where you're jumping in and you are like just in and then you got to go. Yeah. Yeah. So that's fine. Hey, we're on a show. This is the Enlightened Couch Potato Show. And I'm Adrianne Gunn.
I'm Nicholas Rave.
We've already been going. It's been happening. So here we are.
So what else have you watched? Because you've actually watched some things. I'm pretty much done talking.
Brilliant. So I'm attempting to think if there's some sort of order this should go in. I might outline. So I've found myself watching quite a few things that Kate Winslet is in the last week or two.
Just actor obsessed for some reason?
Well, so how did this happen? I don't even recall where I started. Sometimes that happens. I drop into themes of actors. So I've watched, I think I rewatched Ammonite, but probably after watching, she's in Mare of Easton right now. I watched the God's Own Country, I think. And then the director of that directed Ammonite, so I watched it again. And then the person who runs my Plex server, somebody requested Mare of Easton, which is Kate Winslet playing a detective trying to solve these missing girl cases. And
contemporary or period piece?
Contemporary.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it good?
It's so good. And the thing I've noticed the thing that's great about Kate Winslet is that I've talked about vanity in acting before. She has no vanity in her acting, and she's shaped like a person, and she looks like a person that, so she's in, and she loves to pick these incredibly complicated characters. So Mare Easton she's not, there's no vanity in even the character that was written. This is a very complicated woman. And she's not necessarily on top of her game. And she's good at what she does, but she's not a train wreck, but there's, she's got a family, there's dysfunction, things are complicated, and it's gorgeous. I don't even, it's so fascinating because it really does feel like being dropped straight into the story. And then I ended up watching.
Is that a movie or a show?
It's a TV show. It's a TV show.
Okay.
Although to me, it seems like it could be a limited series because they did a whole arc and I can't imagine them doing it again. Like it's about her character, but it's also about the town. So I think the character Mare was a basketball star. They won some amazing state championship or some sort of thing, and she was the star of the game. And she's still in this town, but is now the detective and the cop, and everybody knows everybody. So it's about the town. It's about all these close relationships, but then these horrible things, these young girls are missing, and then trying to figure out that.
Is it based on a true story?
That is something I do not know.
Kate Winslet, it really is something special. I even remember in an interview randomly that I heard with Jack Black, he was in like a romantic movie, like it was out of character for him. It was when he was doing School of Rock and all this. I think it was maybe not John Cusack because he was in High Fidelity. It was Jack Black was paired with Kate Winslet, and he was like, he talked in the interview about how he's like, I'm not a good actor. Like he's like, I had to act with Kate Winslet, and he said the craziest thing is that when you're acting with somebody who's that good and that generous, he's like, I was better and more effortless in my acting than I've ever been. Totally. Because she was so there and so real and so in it, so professional and kind. Like he just couldn't stop singing her praises. Yeah,
that reminds me of a thing so I've been thinking a bit about gender, and I've been thinking quite a bit about invisible work and emotional labor. And that reminds me a lot of women are trained from a young age in being a way that makes everyone look good. Now, I know that there's a principle in acting that who you're being and how you're responding is supposed to serve the whole piece. And so theoretically, everyone should be there creating opportunities within the group for and with people. There's the theory about the straight man allowing the comedian to be funnier. And there's a craft in that. Not everyone is good at that.
No.
And it's invisible work. It's invisible labor. The numbers of times that I hear people talk about how well women blend when they're singing, and I was like, harmony with people. And I was like, yeah, that's the fucking job. That's how harmony works. You're supposed to blend, and you're supposed to sing in a way that creates space for the lead to do a thing. But the number of men who suck at that and drive me crazy, like Emmylou Harris is well known to be able to sing with everyone. I'm like, yeah, but nearly most women on stage with a man are doing 8,000 times the work and making it look easy and making him look better than he actually is. Yeah. And it's so fascinating because if I tried hard, I could probably break down how it works and how to do it. And it's so phenomenal to I remember not the title of that movie, but I remember actually loving Jack Black in that. And I did not appreciate him before whatever that movie is, where the two of them are paired. And I too was really thrilled about wow, this relationship is bringing out new things in both actors that I really appreciate. And I don't think I was inclined to like Kate Winslet prior to that. I maybe remember everybody really excited about her in Titanic, and I'm just like,
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind for me is one of my all-time favorite movies. So she kind of always has, to me, it's the most realistic depiction of the manic pixie dream girl. Yeah. Because that's a really kind of a dark story. And it's like, oh, this is a codependent relationship that's being really, but it's also the the beauty and love of this whole thing. And both of them, like both her and Jim Carrey in that movie, their performances blow my mind. So
Yeah.
I have been in love with her pretty much ever since then.
This is funny. I love her in that movie and forgot she was in that. And this is what I'm talking about with the vanity. She drops so deeply into whoever she's being that I would have thought she was an Emma someone. I don't know which Emma, but I just remember.
I put Maggie Gyllenhaal kind of in that same category of like just so I guess the craft of acting and and the sexy beautifulness of allowing oneself to be ugly and seen. Yeah, because all of these people, there's some very not pretty that goes on, and when she goes back and forth, even in the show, of being aware that she's being watched or caring about how she's perceived, and then you can tell when she's not. That's an interesting freedom that not all women have, is just being able to just be, regardless of what it looks like. Did you ever hear the interview with Oprah where Kate Winslet was sitting down? She was talking about the drawing scene in Titanic. And then Oprah compliments her breasts. And she's like, millions of fucking people are watching. And she's like, did Oprah just fucking say I have nice boobs? What the hell is happening? And she's like, you can see her just like, thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it. And then a friend told me that she's in a movie called Little Children, and there's this amazing sex scene. So I'm in the middle of that. I watched her in a thing.
Did you seek that one out?
Well, my friend said you get it. We were in the conversation about sexiness. There was something sexy. She was like, "You want to watch this?" So I'm halfway through that, and I watched Carnage, where she's in there with Jodie Foster and these other two people. That one's hard. It's like a play where there are two couples fighting, and it's really tense. So I'm just sort of finding myself. I keep watching Winslet stuff, and
I love going down actor rabbit holes where you just like actor obsessed for a little while. I can't remember who we were talking about doing that with. There was an actor that I was like, there's a bunch of movies with this actor in it that Faye hadn't seen, and I was like, we should just do all of his movies. I mean, obviously there's people like Jackie Chan where you're like, oh, let's do a Jackie Chan, but it's different with like a character actor that you just know that they have a bunch of great movies that they've been in. It might have been Val Kilmer, because I was like, you haven't seen Tombstone, you haven't seen The Saint, you haven't seen The Doors. Like, there's so many of these great great Val Kilmer performances. Like, it might have been Val Kilmer.
I think in a healing place, what's great about watching Kate Winslet is she really does look like people I know, and she's rounder and curvier. When I was watching the For All Mankind, I recognized that here we are watching something that's supposed to be set in the 60s and the 70s, and it moves forward, and all of the actors that they hired are skinny people based on our own current standards, because that's what actors are like now. But back then, normal people would have been curvier or rounder. Also, normal people now are curvier or rounder. And I just kept thinking how it's interesting that that's not a choice that people make. Why don't we find people with hips, and like, why don't we hire actors that actually look like what was popular at the time in culture?
Period piece.
Right. It makes sense to me. And I recognize that our current actors aren't shaped that way, but why wouldn't they even costume them? Such that they're the shape. I'm not the boss of their choices. But for me, some of watching Kate this last week has been more fun for me, in the sense of recognizing that my nervous system decided it would be really important to store everything that I eat as fat this year, because we might have to evacuate. Who knows? And so being a rounder shape of a female right now is not my favorite thing, but the watching a person be curvy and do the things and kind of kick ass, I'm like, oh, it sort of loosened a lot of my judgment.
Well, why do you think a lot of people have the fucking neurotic stuff about these impossible standards, because the examples that were shown, it's sort of like at some point somebody realized that most people like looking at pretty things, right, and we like looking at pretty people. And so we were like, well, we want people to watch TV, so let's put pretty people on the TV. But then they were like, no ugly people on the TV, or whatever, anything that falls out of this very narrow standard of what I think is pretty. And now, and then we're like, anything that doesn't fall in that narrow standard is wrong or bad. And right. And the vast majority of humans fall outside of that standard.
Yeah. So. And they keep changing the goalpost. I think Tina Fey has a very famous line about yay for J-Lo and the Kardashians, but now everyone's beauty standard is to just have a giant rack and a giant ass and all these other specific shapes of different humans, and no one actually looks like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think we at some point we all have to address the my standards are, I have to take that inside and be like, I'm not looking to what the outside world is imposing on this. And that's a tough thing for a lot of people.
Yeah. One of the things that's been very, very inspiring happened last evening. So I've talked about Storm Large on our show before. Yeah. So how do we, okay. So Storm became slightly more known to people outside of Portland and San Francisco and Boston or Massachusetts area. She was in Massachusetts first and then Bay Area and then moved to Portland. She's been in Portland for 20 years because she was on a show, Rockstar Supernova, which was Tommy Lee and a couple other musicians from like Guns N' Roses and Metallica were putting together a super band and they were looking for their lead singer. So it was this like show, I think it was on like 6 months or whatever, back in 2006. It may have crossed over to 2007. So she was on that. She was one of the finalists. She kicked ass. She rocked people's faces off. Prior to that, she was in Portland doing a loungecore band weekly at this venue called Dante's. And what was interesting about her, now I'm bringing this up because she was on America's Got Talent last night.
Yeah, I heard about this.
So, her weekly show at Dante's. Now, Storm at this point has sung at Carnegie Hall a couple times and tours around the world with Pink Martini and then tours around the world with her own band. She's been 30 years at least in the as a professional musician, doing pretty dang well, like making money, stunning audiences because she's really compelling. And when I got to see her back in 2002 when she moved to Portland, she threw together this band of like rockers who were playing sort of a like jazzy versions, mashups of like metal tunes and other stuff. And she did this fun loungecore version of Hopelessly Devoted where she would just be covered in blood and have like a knife. It was like a stalker song. Sometimes she'd be like naked. She would frequently ridicule and like spank. She'd like spank people on stage, or she'd take their cell phone in the middle of the show. It was a very gritty, interactive thing. At some point, she would like be up and rocking, and she would spit out into the audience. I was working at Hollywood Video for a minute, and I took my manager with me, and he was an adorable gay man, and so she like does one of these moments of like she's rocking it and she spit. She's like, it's a loogie. It's not like just for fun. It's a loogie. She's like spits out and it lands about an inch from my foot. And I've been going like mostly weekly. So I'm a regular. The bouncer doesn't charge me money. My friends and I would get in all the time. So she like, at this time in my life, this is my peak asshole years. And these are probably some of Storm's peak asshole years too, frankly. And I, even still walking around, look like don't fuck with me. And we bumped into each other in the bathroom because she didn't have the green room at the time. And there were like mini conversations, but she's like looking and she freezes to just check that I'm not going to rush the stage and knock her the fuck down. And I look down at my foot and then I smile because I get it. Because this is part of the show. This is like my second year watching her things. And the guy I came with is like, oh my God, she almost spit on us. I love her. I love her. So awesome. And once she got the like, everything's fine, I'm not going to kick her ass, like she continues with her show. So I was really curious because she's feisty. What her trajectory was going to be. I did not picture Carnegie Hall. And on Rockstar Supernova, and that's like 4 years after this spitting on us thing, she's like the mom of the group, super loving. She accessed this like loving new storm that's not as crass. And the world loved her. And it was really fun to have this treasured performer be loved by people. I may have to move my cat because I'm going to have emotion. So last night, the Storm's been warning all of her fans and such, hey, I am on America's Got Talent. Now I had to go out and get a digital tuner because it's on like TV, and my remote is broken. So I'm like going through the channel scan in the menu at the side of the TV. And it turns out I don't even get that channel no matter where I put the dang thing. But she's live streaming on Instagram, her reactions to watching herself. So I end up watching that, and to watch her watch herself is so fucking adorable because here she is. It's been, a decade plus since she was on TV. I don't even know what America's Got Talent is like. I guess they have singers and comedians and jugglers.
Yeah, I've never watched it.
Weird stuff. You can be on with a dance troupe and acrobats, and then you're singing. And apparently one person's going to win that, or one group's going to win at the end. And we don't know the structure. So this is the auditions. So I'm watching her, and she doesn't watch TV either. So she's like, oh my God, commercials. And she's live tweeting. So it's just her. It's just watching her. And then it comes on and she does her thing of doing a rocking version of a jazz tune, like unexpected. She just is like dark, sexy, growly version of I've Got You Under My Skin. It's a little demented, her version, and she's edited it down. And I'm like, I've heard her sing this song a bunch. I know that she like has all these like arpeggios and these things she does. And I'm like, this is a pretty dynamic song. I wonder if they'll let her get there. And she fucking rocks the shit out of it. And the other thing is she's like, hi, I'm Storm Large. Yes, that's my name. Also, I'm 51. She has some like jokey banter with Simon Cowell because he's like, have we met? And so watching her watch herself and like trying not to vomit and being really excited. And then there's this moment where like, fuck yeah, the Storm I know can just move any room and like rock the shit out of any room. She shows up, she kills it because it was filmed back in March and she hadn't been performing for like a year. So wondering if people still had the performing chops, that sort of thing. All of the judges are in love with her and they say so. And then Simon Cowell gets to the end there and they've just been like, Howie, I love you. That's amazing. This other lady, we love you. And then Simon is like, I love your song. I love your voice. And then he says, I love your personality. Now, because I'm in rapport with the Storm's journey of assholeness to this other thing. And because at this point, she's also done a one-woman show sharing about the craziness of her mother and thinking she was going to be like, locally, we know a lot. And we've been in this journey with her. I am watching with my enlightened couch potato eyes, right? And when he says, I love your personality. Here's a gushing moment of like killing it, being her full self. The audience gives a standing O. I could see tiny Stormy, which is what her mom used to call her, choke up and finally get that vindication and that love that a kid who wants attention so much that she sings so fucking loud and big and like wants people to love her that much. And I relate to this too. Get a moment of deep love, and she can't interrupt them to be self-deprecating and go like, oh no, I'm a cautionary tale, which has been her like shtick for a little while of like not taking in her success. I got so choked up and I was like, oh, us little damaged kids who turn into assholes for a while and then get the thread again can be deeply loved even in this ridiculous mainstream TV people world.
Wow.
And it was the most gorgeous thing I've seen in a while. Now, what's funny is I I didn't even watch the performance yet. I just watched her watching her own performance. And then I went and found the clip on the NBC app because the clips are free.
Yeah.
So good. It was so, I have no idea what's going to happen from there.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that she finally got her Patreon up and that she did an audio recording of her book, Crazy Enough. And so she's kind of positioned.
Good. Well, I mean, this is a ton
it.
of eyeballs, regardless of what happens as it continues. I was surprised when I first heard about it. I was like, Storm Large, isn't she kind of like past America's Got Talent? But then I thought about America's Got Talent is the one that broke that. He was internet famous. The guy who does the really, really good clown makeup and then does the like kind of operatic versions of pop songs and stuff. Yes, Puddles.
They're friends, by the way. They perform together all the time.
That makes a ton of freaking sense. But yeah, he was on America's Got Talent, and I knew him before. I'd seen some of his things, and then I was like, oh, and it did nothing but good things for his career. So yeah, this makes sense for her to go on there in a similar kind of, what are you like in the like, what is Puddles, like what kind of there's a gimmick there, but it's also amazing, like
gorgeous as fuck, rock star lady.
Yeah.
Where have you been our whole lives? Because wow, that voice, like yeah. And
I think this is fantastic. It's so fun to see somebody who you really love and you feel like deserves it get a win. I mean, that's honestly, not to cycle it back to my story, a lot of what you shared there about Storm, that's how I feel about Bo Burnham. I've seen him live a couple times, I think, at least once. But I remember like the early days of YouTube, like I was a fan from the beginning, that kind of bullshit. Like I've watched almost every single thing he's ever done, and I've seen podcasts and interviews because I'm obsessed with him in the sense that he speaks to me more clearly than there's a handful of artists, creators who speak that deeply to my soul. So then you get really connected to those people, and then their success and their struggle is yours to a certain extent.
And the other thing that's fantastic is I really want more people in the world to see and experience her as a performer, because I don't. So there's a way in which a lot of people who are popular have fuck tons of other dancers and spectacle going around them, and they sing well, and maybe they learn the dance steps and they pull it off. But there aren't. I don't know if there are as many performers who can walk in and change the temperature of a room by who they're being, and like grab each audience member intimately as though they feel like they're talking to you.
Yeah.
And I know that it may not be possible to feel that specifically in a video of Storm, but she does that in every room she's in. I mean, her name's Storm, so she changes the weather of the space she's in, because she is a fucking natural phenomenon. And that energy, like teaching people how to cultivate that kind of energy and have it translate. There are people who are good at singing and they're authentic and, you know, but I don't know that there are a lot of people that like cultivate and capture.
I mean, they do exist, but it's rare, and it's a different skill set than being able to sing the correct notes at the correct time.
Yeah. And much like people can talk about how MP3s are missing so many of the like sonic qualities and depth of sound, and everybody's fine because they're listening to MP3s with shitty headphones. I think a lot of what's popular and mainstream and accessible to people are the easier to digest humans, and they're not required to give you that life-altering experience. And so here's somebody I know that can give a light, like people go home dreaming about her. Yeah. And like that kind of thing. And
but
just
people
like,
crave that depth of experience. I just think it's extremely hard to do in a virtual context.
Fair.
Which makes me even more excited for you to watch that video, because it's one of the subjects of the video is how hard it is to do this and not have that audience feedback. Like what you're describing that Storm can do necessitates an audience. You can't do it if there's not somebody there to create that feedback loop with.
Unless you have really good camera switching, camera director, because you can, if the artist and the camera people are aware of what's going on, I think it's possible to create an emotional experience.
Well,
with the tools
watch what one person can do in that special, because I think I'm in agreement with you, but it requires another language. It requires the language of film.
Yeah.
And that is not something that even your typical live performers have. You need another person to be able to capture the live performance and translate it into a different medium, which is this person is sitting here watching this on their phone or on their TV or their computer or whatever.
Yeah. I'm excited and I'm also excited because I think a lot more of our art will become virtual, is already becoming virtual. And so getting performers to appreciate how to do it, how to captivate people in a singular focal point and how to access that. I think it's like quantum physics. It's like time travel. It's like capturing energy and essence that the moment someone press play, they can't help but to feel it. I've been working with a couple artists behind the scenes, helping them figure out how to be that force with a camera. Because I've been teaching people how to do that on stage, and then figuring out, okay, you think that the rules have changed, and people have these beliefs about that's impossible in this two-dimensional thing to be an energy and a spirit. And I was like, no, it just means you have to time travel. You're like, you have the opportunity, or you reach the many through the singular. And I'm like, and then teaching them how to do it. It's been a fun experiment in some of my work behind the scenes.
I cannot wait. When can we schedule to talk about that one? Do we have to wait till next week? Because I don't want to wait that long.
Yeah, teaching everybody how to do that.
No, I mean, I'm talking about the inside special.
Oh yeah, no, because I can get it done in the week.
It's going to be so. There's going to be so many things to talk about that thing that you're talking about. How do you create something? Because it's utterly hypnotic. I've been to one of his live performances, and it was arguably the best live performance I've ever been to, where I've never been in the setting where every single person was synced up.
Yes.
With the performer, and he was like, "You're with me." And everyone is having the reaction that he wants them to have at the moment that he wants them to have it. And the special captures that in the setting of, I'm watching this on a TV. Good sound system or headphones if you can. Like do really get the nuance of the audio, because it's so well produced.
Fuck yeah. Okay, I've got that. I've got a home theater surround. So here's this last, I think we can cover it. Here's this last thing in my, it's sort of topical. I get to have that like healing of my inner child and the feistiness with watching Storm. So I have been listening to Glennon Doyle's new We Can Do Hard Things podcast. And she had an episode about fun, because she does not know how to have fun. And her wife, Abby Wambach, is the like soccer star who does. So that came up. And then I listened to an episode about fun. And then I started Matthew McConaughey's Greenlights.
Yeah.
And I just finished it today.
I remember him going on the podcast circuit to talk about that book. And I listened to it, and I actually picked the book up in a freaking Costco at one point while I was waiting, and I skimmed through it, and it looked interesting. It sounds, I don't know.
I would suggest, if you do audiobooks, to listen to him, because he's just got that silky voice going on. It just makes a fuck of a lot more sense to hear him theatrically do this. So he's a massive like Texas storyteller. Yeah. Which is, it's a whole thing. So what happened is I'm listening to this podcast about fun, and then Abby and Glennon bring up that maybe fun is a gendered thing. So Abby Wambach she was an Olympian soccer player and the U.S. national team and this sort of thing. But the way that she grew up, she was always had access to being able to do things, I'm going to say frivolously, without necessarily goals. I mean, sports has goals and soccer literally has goals. But the idea is that she got to utilize herself and dedicate herself to something that's like pure enjoyment and not care about what people look like. And Glennon was saying that maybe fun is gendered, that men are allowed to have fun and play golf and just do things for the spirit of them. And then like even young girls are given dolls to play house, which is more, and women they're made aware of how they look when they do stuff, which goes back to this vanity thing I was talking about earlier, where you can't just dance just to move your body and be free. You're aware that there's eyes on you. And so there's like a different access to whether women are just allowed to play or do things for just joy or things that don't have goals, because they have their tasks. And she and her sister co-hosts this podcast with her. We're talking about how they like getting their to-do list done, or they like doing errands and then enjoying them, but they don't understand this fun thing. And I was thinking about how often men are allowed to just do stuff that has no purpose, that they're allowed to play and move and frolic and that sort of thing. And so then I start listening to Matthew McConaughey's book. And early on, his brothers and his fathers are getting into fist fights. And there was literally in the first chapter section of the book, there's literally a pissing contest. Not just using it as a saying, but his dad is out drinking with his friends 117 miles away from their house, and they are trying to pee taller than the tallest guy there. And he's like, his dad's like, my son could pee higher. It's his brother, not Matthew, but my son could pee higher. And like, fuck that, no, he can't. So he drives 117 miles back, or 112 back to his house, grabs his son, fills him up with beer and other stuff, and gets him back again. It's like 4 a.m. by the time they get there again. And then he pees over the guys. But he makes a bet. He's like, I'll bet you my son could pee higher. And I bet you for that dirt bike, because apparently the son wanted a dirt bike. And so I'm just listening. And this is like the second or third most fucking ridiculous story that I've heard. And these are adult motherfucking men goofing off and having the freedom to literally just like pee near each other higher than other people. And I'm just like, what? I cannot fathom or imagine a world in which that is a thing that women are doing. Like, first of all, I'm like, men are so dumb and violent. And it's so weird how they operate. And this is a whole thing that Matthew McConaughey has stories about his dad, where his dad's whipping him and beating the shit out of him, but it's not abusive, because in his own frame of reference, there's a version where there's like, that is love and that is teaching and that is appropriate. That your rite of passage is to like hit your father with a 2x4 and both get bloodied. And now you're a man too, but that's not abusive. That's just totally fine. I don't know where the line is that's crossed, but having just listened to this thing about men having fun and having access to fun, I started wondering so many things, so many things about how men are castrated from emotions when they're little, and that's traumatizing, and that it might freeze them at a specific level of development. Are they just vastly different? If I hadn't had a dose of estrogen at 11, would I have been like, because I just started giving a shit about pain and getting hurt and consequences. But all of my friends were like racing their cars and leaping off of roofs and starting fires and punching each other. And I was on that trajectory, but I did not get testosterone at 11 or 12, like a fucking estrogen. It's a very different thing. So I've just been thinking a lot about these, like, not just cultural differences, but hormonal differences and what's appropriate, and the wildest, craziest shit that men get themselves into. I didn't get into a healing moment, but I just found myself wondering how men actually live past 17. So confusing to me.
I've always felt the same way. I've never really been good at relationships with men. Most of my life. I've been like, I can't remember if I've told this story on here, but you've heard before that my sister's best friend was the eldest in a family of 7 girls. So I had effectively 8 sisters, plus my mom and my grandma, and my dad was there, but he was gone a lot of the time during my childhood. So I had always been like, guys like trucks and sports and hunting, and I don't want or care about any of those things.
Right.
So I'm just going to hang out with girls. I mean, my tendency now is that I tend to be very reticent to put things into gender boxes, because I think I tend to think of it as more who is more encouraged to be yang.
Yes.
And yes, I think hormones play into that, obviously, because if you give someone 20 times more testosterone than they had before, you're going to notice a difference in their behavior. So that definitely plays a part of it. But it's also like your point is that there's a book. Can I look it up super fast? Hold on. Is this bad?
I don't know.
Keep it entertaining. Crap, it's under books. There's a book called Play.
Yeah. Okay.
How It Shapes the Brain and Opens the Imagination and Invigorates the Soul by Stuart Brown. And this book describes the idea of play as an essential nutrient. And like you need fats and carbohydrates and what's the other one? Protein, and you need play, and you will die if you don't have it. And then he talks about play as different from games. So play is this unstructured thing. He says like the quintessential play thing is catch.
Oh, I love catch. It's one of my favorite
Where
things.
it's why like jumping on a trampoline is play according to his definition. As soon as you start competing, or as soon as there start being rules, that's not entirely play, although it's still activating some of it. It's not the same thing as truly unstructured play. Like, let's go play in the pool. Let's just jump around and splash and do whatever unstructured. And then when I think about unstructured play, there is a point for girls, it seems, when the same kind of rough and tumble play, which is a specific thing he talks about as being important for development. It's important for understanding boundaries and understanding your own body, feeling comfortable in your skin, which is kind of getting the shit kicked out of you a little bit by kids that might be a little bit older than you. And you're learning like what you can get away with and what hurts and what to do and what not to do. And that is much more encouraged for most boys. I never did that shit at all. I was so like, I don't touch other boys. We never touch. I never hold, like nothing happens. No physical contact whatsoever until when I was in my teen years, it got so awkward that I basically started a fight club with my best friend. And we were like, what can you know about yourself if you haven't been punched in the face? And I broke his rib at one. No, he broke my rib at one point, and I gave him a bloody nose. That's how it worked. And we were like, it was loving. Like we were trying to get better at this stuff. But I don't know if it would have escalated to that point if when I was little, I was roughhoused with and played like that. And I never did it. I would get so there was a lot of distance in that. So it's not 100% universal. And I think it's more cultural than biological. Totally. And absolutely, I think for most girls, there's a point when it's like, no, you're not supposed to be doing that. That's not ladylike. Like,
yeah. Well, and the things that we get to figuring out that not all men are trained to do is figure out how to navigate our own emotions. I think boys, it's interesting because in the structure of how school works now, boys are forced to sit down a lot sooner and try to be using language sooner than they're developed for it. And they can't, like, they're more like, they want to be physical and run around, and they're forced to sit and be taught by a woman. And like, because of how elementary school kind of works now, sit still, stop moving, think of stuff, talk about things. And they're usually like linguistically, language wise, a year and a half behind the girls at their same age at that point in development. But then women learn how to navigate their own emotions. Men learn how to navigate their physicality and understand and more appreciate the range of what they're capable of doing with themselves. Yeah, that's fair.
Not this guy.
Yeah, I was remembering as you were talking this ridiculously fun and joyful moment where, for like, I don't know who decided. So I'm at a soccer practice, I think it's our junior year, and someone just decides to pick, because you're not supposed to touch the ball with your hands, pick up the ball with their hands. They made some sort of weird gesture, or they fell over and they picked up the ball and they threw it at somebody, and then they just like ran and knocked them over. And it started like raining around the same time. So we ended up we don't know how to play rugby, but it ended up being this like soccer rugby. No one knows what's going on. Everybody's like chasing each other. There's like tag rugby soccer in the like insane mud because it's suddenly raining and everything's wet and crazy. That was play. And it can happen, but we were already predisposed to be the kinds of women who would roughhouse and move our bodies and do that sort of thing.
Well, the point of the book is that the need for this never goes away, and that it's our responsibility. I think one of the things he talks about is it's our responsibility to prioritize it and create situations where we can be free. That's what that yang component that gets crushed or discouraged and encouraged in some people is, it is about like being free and just saying yes and going, I'm going to go do that. And I'm going to jump off that bridge and I'm going to go kick that thing. And I'm going to see if I can fit myself through that hole. And I'm going to I'm imagining a friend of mine who tried to jump through a fence and there was like a spot where there was an opening, and I was like, this is not a good idea. And then his pants ripped because he didn't make it fully.
Oh my God. Yeah. So what I decided to do with this prompt of play and hearing Matthew McConaughey just kind of have more fucking fun at life in his book, that I'm like, I want to have more fun. Yeah. I ordered a football. So I have been just like playing in my house with the football because it feels good. I sort of like hug it while I'm watching movies, and I toss it back and forth to myself, which just ends up being interesting therapy for my arm movements, and invite people over to play catch. That's what I've started with. Catch is one of my favorite things.
Yeah. Yeah. Frisbee. I love Frisbees.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed that more than catch, but.
So my cat is saying hello, and it's time for something.
Yeah, and no, we're good on time. So
okay, do you want to say hi, Kitty?
Hi, Kitty.
Say hi, Kitty.
Fluff ball.
Say hey, everybody.
What a
Ginger.
What a chunky little calico.
Yeah, she's
like a throw pillow.
Ever since my neurotransmitters are slightly more balanced, I like her more, and she is more squishable like this.
She does seem like she's pretty cool with you right now, but it might not last. So yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, lovely talking to you.
Too.
I'm really excited for our next conversation. We'll text about the details and TV deeply.
Yes. Oh, so deep.
Bye.
Bye.